at black and white, like this photo on the left here. I was a member of the photography club for 5 years, the Maroondah Photographic Society. I know Julie and Jenny are members of photography clubs, or were. I'm not sure if Jenny still is. We have monthly, in photo clubs, you usually have monthly judging of photos. You put your photos in, and not everybody does. Some people are too scared to. And even for 5 years, there were some people in my club who never put photos in. And the judge every month is an external judge who is usually a good photographer, a different judge every month. And they mark out of 15 and they might suggest changes. What they never do though is play around with your image. They never say, well, this is how it could have looked, and make some adjustments. Well, I'm going to do that today. I'm going to play around with some of the images, not all of them, and show you how what you thought was a really good image is actually maybe better than what you thought, I hope, and make you realise, or help you to realise how much you can do to improve your photography. So let's move along. Wait a minute. It's not working. There we go. There's your little light bulb moment screen. So this class is supposed to be a master class, but it's not. If it was, I'd be attending, not running it. It's a class for beginners. We're going to go through things like what makes a great photograph, the rules of photography. There'll be an examination on this at the end, or not. Light. Light is the most important thing in photography. Without light, you don't have a photograph. The word photograph comes from the Greek word photos, meaning light, and graphe, meaning drawing. So photography is drawing with light. And it's a good example looking at all of our screens. There's someone talking in the background on one of the.
Hang on, I think you're hearing my husband at work. I will.
Yeah. You've got to shut husbands up. I know that. Okay. Yes, where was I? Yes, so a good example of light is if at the moment we see a lot of Zooms or video, home videos going on the television. We see some pretty well-known people and they have bad light. People don't always understand it. If we have a look at the photos on the screen now, some people are dark, some people are bright. Don't worry about it, but maybe have a think about how you look on the screen. That's a good example of light in photography. And there are some really serious people on the television who have bad light. We're going to look at processing, nothing too complicated. Camera settings, not everyone uses them very much. Aperture. The aperture is obviously the little hole that the light enters the camera and through. And shooting mode. A lot of you may shoot in auto. Some of you I know shoot in manual or other settings. We'll look at that. Lenses, not everyone has lenses. Well, they have one, but only one. And everyone is a portrait photographer. We all do that. So, can you see all my little icons down the bottom of my screen, by the way? Anyone there?
No, we can't.
No.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. So, I call this photo Wise Guys. Why am I showing it? Well, they're all from the Park Lane nursing home, taken about 6 years ago. Does anyone know the Park Lane aged care facility in Maroondah Highway?
No.
No. Well, it's sort of relevant to our, to EPC. My mother-in-law was there, Jenny's mum, my wife's mum, for about 15 years with severe dementia. And I offered a free photo shoot to the residents and said they'd get a free A4 coloured photo if they took part. And about 15 volunteered. Some of them walked in. These guys all walked in. Some of them came in on their walkers and some of them were wheeled in. And we had a wonderful time. And this is just an example of 3 photos. What you notice about this is they're all cropped, nice and tight, and they're in black and white. Sometimes black and white is the best way to show a photo. And some of you may never have done that. So what makes a great photo? Every photo is art. Now we snap away with our cameras, our phones, our tablets, whatever. But what we're doing is we're making art, and it's terribly subjective as to what makes a good photo. You could take a photo of your child, your grandchild, your parent, grandparent, your pet, or somewhere you went to see on a holiday. You put it on Facebook or somewhere and everyone likes it, but you can't dislike a photo. And it's getting an emotional response. And that's a great photo. If you get an emotional response, it's a really good photo, sorry, but is it a great photo? We're talking about, would someone who doesn't know you like a photo of that? Would they respond? They may or they may not. So we have to separate the emotional response to the artistic response. And what is photography? People can say about a photo, oh, that was photoshopped. What does that mean? Photoshop is used as a generic term, like it's Glad wrapped when it could be one of many brands. What I didn't realise until reasonably recently is that when you take a photo in JPEG format, which is something we'll look at later, your photo is processed inside your camera. So you're actually processing a photo by putting it in JPEG. If you take a photo in what's called RAW, you're not processing it. So it's sort of like photoshopping when you take a photo on anything that's in JPEG. Is it legitimate to make changes to a photo? Well, you've done that already, making a JPEG photo. Back in the days of black and white photography, we don't really know or don't understand because we didn't do it, although I know some of you have done your own processing. I did a little bit, but I didn't know that you can do all sorts of amazing things in the darkroom. And, you know, so this sort of so-called photoshopping has been going on for years. So here's a photo. Can everyone see that? I've got some people photos on my right. Can we get rid of those, or what can we do about this?
That's just on your computer, Barry, so people can adjust on their side as to what they want to see.
Actually, I'll just, let's get rid of that. Oh, okay, all right. So if we look at this photo, has anyone got any comments about it? What do you think of it?
Fairly flat in lighting.
Yep. Good.
Lovely colouring.
Yes, it's sort of colour coordinated with the pavement, isn't it?
Yes.
Any other comments?
Yes.
It tells a story.
What a fantastic comment.
Yeah.
Tells a story. A great photo has to tell a story. It has to grab you. And what sort of feeling do you have about this photo? Like what's the impression in it?
Very confusion. Oh,
Confusion, yeah. Anything else? Sorry?
confusion.
Yep.
I thought pensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadness.
Sadness. So we've all got, you know, there's similar comments, but there's a real vibe to this photo. And if you have a look at the crop, it's very tightly cropped. We're missing the top of her head, the bottom of her elbow. We can only see a little bit of her legs.
Yes.
And I was reading about this photo, and it's supposed to show everything you said, but also vulnerability. You can see her dress is just turned up a little bit. You can see a little bit of her legs. She's holding looks like a piece of torn newspaper. Now, this is just a screenshot, so it doesn't do justice to it, but this was made in 1981, and it's the second most expensive photo framed ever sold in the world. It sold for about Australian $6 million, this photo.
Oh,
Jeez.
oh.
It was taken by
I knew it was good.
Yeah, it was obviously posed. It was taken by a famous photographer, and because if you're famous, you know, when you sell your next photo, it can get a big price tag. So now we'll look at another photo. Any thoughts about this one?
Expansive.
Yep.
Calm.
Yeah, calm.
Great cycling track.
That's a really good comment. You know, that there was someone, I think, cycling on this and they took the cyclist off.
Why?
And there was a building somewhere, I presume at the top side, and they removed that as well. This is the Rhine River in
Yes.
Germany, and there's a lot more story to that than there is to this. If you have a look at it, the sky is not terribly interesting. It's split completely in half. It's got some nice leading lines. And this is the most expensive photo ever sold on the public market. It sold for over 6 million Australian dollars. Now, if you put this in a photo club competition, it might do well. It might just get an average score. It's terribly subjective art. Is it worth $6 million? Well, doesn't matter. The most expensive, does anyone know the most expensive photo ever sold, but it was sold on the private market? Does anyone know?
No.
It's by an Australian photographer.
The one on Bondi Beach?
No. I'm sure that's a famous photo. No, it was called The Phantom. It's really black with this white, smoky, phantom-looking stuff, but it was sold to a private collector. So I'm not showing that one. So that just shows you what I really like about this one is the crop. And as someone mentioned, the colours, the tones. I mean, it looks a bit flat, but that's probably quite deliberate.
The cropping sort of puts it in a box, doesn't it? Like she's in a, like she's been confined, prison.
Yeah. So I want you to really think closely about cropping. I crop just about every photo I take. Does anyone recognise this photo?
Cemetery.
No, so I just recognise it. It's made by Ansel Adams, who's one of the most famous photographers ever known. He obviously was only doing it in black and white. He was famous for his landscapes and also his processing in the darkroom. He had this theory about tones. He came up with this. You know, if you study photography, I did for a little while, and you actually studied tones. I can't remember even what I studied about it, but that doesn't matter. This is one of the most famous photos ever taken, as opposed to being sold. It sort of doesn't really grab you, but it's interesting. It's called Moon Over Something or the Other. I can't remember the name of the town. But we'll just leave it at that.
Oh, very good.
This is a really famous First World War photo. What do we think about this?
Oh, fantastic.
Amazing.
Right.
Action.
Yeah. The interesting thing about it, apart from all that, is it's a composite of 4 photos, apparently. They've all been added in the darkroom, which sort of makes you think a little bit differently about it.
Yeah.
Like those plays. Sorry?
There was great controversy about that at the time, wasn't there, about what was real and what was not?
Yeah, about
Hello,
Hurley.
Julie. Yes, I'm sure there was. You'd obviously know more about it than me. Presumably the planes weren't there, and all those explosions possibly look a little bit exaggerated, don't they? Maybe just 1 or 2. But anyway, it just shows you that the so-called photoshopping of today was alive, and as Julie said, it was controversial back in that day.
Barry, can I ask you, sorry, just Pen here, how are you going?
Hello, Pen.
Hi, can I ask, is there a separation between sort of purist people who think you should do everything with your camera and others who are cool with you doing things post-production? Or is there a difference between the two styles, or is it all just do what you want to do because it's your own art sort of approach?
You can do anything you like. There's a guy in my photo club, the Maroondah Club, which I was a member of for 5 years. And I think he was also a member of the, he was of the Knox Club, because I went to a Knox Club meeting with him. Ron Berger, he's a really good photographer, and he's a brilliant photoshopper. He's got a graphic design background. And whenever his photos came up in judging, the judge would look at it, and they were so clever, the judge wouldn't know what he'd done. You know, like he had and like an old car in the middle of a garden in a backyard covered in bushes and flowers. Now, how did it get there? Well, he put it there. A horse standing in the mist next to a jetty. And we see these photos, we don't even know they're his because they're anonymous, and we all know, well, that's wrong, you know, like, and he does brilliant work. And is that photography? Well, it is. And the only thing you're not supposed to do it to is in nature competitions, for example. There was a famous...
the reason for the controversy at that stage was this person was a news photographer, and it was sent out to be news because it was a composite.
Very, very good point, Julia. There was a famous competition recently where someone showed a picture of a panda, or not a panda, an anteater. It was an amazing photo, and he won some big international photography competition, and it was only afterwards they found out it was a stuffed animal. It was supposed to be nature. They were all very embarrassed. Some people take photos of what's OPA, other people's art. You know, like you go to a museum or an artwork or a building, and they put it in a competition and they think, well, why didn't I get a good mark? Well, you know, you didn't take the photo. I mean, you didn't do the piece of, wait a minute, you didn't paint that. You took a photo of it, but you didn't paint it. I took that photo of the Taj Mahal. I asked all those people, they were a distraction, to get out of the way, but they ignored me, which annoyed me. But I had no input into that piece of art. We went around the other side and I saw this goat herder with his goat. It's not a great photo, but that's more my work than that work. Processing. So this photo here, what could we do to this photo to make it better? Any ideas? Or do you think it's perfect?
Crop it.
Crop it.
Crop it. We're going to hear that word a lot. Yes, the background's not that interesting, is it? It's blurred. Anything else?
You can lighten the mother's face so we can see it.
Very good point. She's got shadows. And we'll just leave it. This is a raw photo. So again, it's not a JPEG, so it doesn't look as good, which sounds a bit counterintuitive. This is what we ended up with. This is the photo on the opening page. I've used the shadow slider in Lightroom, my software, and brightened it up as well. You can get rid of shadows a little bit, especially if you take a raw photo. It could have been really nice in colour. Sorry?
It looks nice black and white.
Yeah. If I'd done it in colour and brightened it up and cropped it, it probably still would have looked nice. But that was just, you know, my preference. But if I sent it to her, of course, but if, you know, she may have liked it in both. I can't remember whether I sent her colour in black and white. I probably did. Now, I've cropped it. And like we commented before, it sort of concentrates the emotion, doesn't it, when you crop something. Processing. I use Lightroom and I get Photoshop with it. I pay $14 a month and I get free updates. I really like Lightroom. Lightroom is made for photographers. It's not that hard to do simple things and even reasonably complicated things. It comes with Photoshop, which is very complicated, but that's made for graphic designers mainly. I use Photoshop for something called the clone tool. The comparable thing in Lightroom is not that good. I'll talk about the clone tool later. Canon and Nikon have...
Barry, can I just interrupt for a minute? I think Kay Mayer had a question she was about to ask you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, sorry. Was unmuting. No, I was just making a comment about the texture being really brought out in that black and white photography. It just is, you could almost just touch that and you can feel it. So the black and white.
I just lost you there, Kay. Anyone here, Kay? My sound's gone off.
It's all right. It went back to mute automatically.
It went back to mute. Okay. Yeah. That's all I wanted to say.
That's a really good point, Kay. And there's something nice about black and white photography. And it's not just because it's old. So Apple and Microsoft Photos, Apple Photos and Microsoft Photos are free. You can do processing in that. A cheaper option than Adobe, Lightroom, Photoshop is Luminar Skylum 4. It costs $119, but it's a one-off purchase. Does anyone use that? I only just heard of it recently, but it's supposed to be very good. You can just Google and find something, and you may already have some software, or you may never process your photos and think that's all right, it doesn't matter. I've got here, every photo should be examined for improving. Now that's not really true. If you take 100 photos of a family event or a holiday, you might take 1,000 or 2,000. You don't have to do that. But if there's a particular photo that you really like, it's worth trying to improve them. Personally, I process every single photo that not that I take, because I delete most of them, but I sort of look at everyone as sort of a work of art. Always crop to get maximum effect or not. You don't have to crop, but consider cropping. Check brightness and shadows. Remove distractions. Now, distractions are something that a lot of people don't think of. I never used to think of distractions when I took up photography seriously in 8 years ago. How do you remove distractions? If you're taking a photo of two people and someone standing behind them, what do you do about it? What can you do about it if there's someone standing behind them? Any ideas? You can shoot them, maybe. No, you can ask them to move or wait till they move. Can you all hear me, by the way?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good.
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Just cheer or clap every now and again. Thanks, so I know you're there. So, remove distractions. So you can actually ask someone to move, or you can wait till they move. Sometimes I'm about to take a photo and there's someone moving past, I wait, and then I click. Another thing you can do is you can move yourself and change the angle.
Yes.
Or you can move the person and yourself. You can also remove things afterwards if you've got the right software. But sometimes you can just get rid of a piece of litter on the ground, a garbage bin or anything. When I do Smile Makers photography for EPC or anywhere, if I'm using the wall of a room as my backdrop, and sometimes you've got a nice clear wall, I ask people to move photos, big photos, and they're really happy to do it. You don't want to have a distraction in the back of your photo. Consider black and white if color doesn't add to the photo. Sometimes color can be a distraction. You could have some really bright color that's in the background or even on the person that doesn't add to the photo. So that's a photo I took. I think it was on Mount Baw. I walked up and down there. There were these beautiful green triangle butterflies. You can't go in and get the right crop on that with your camera because they only land there for a second. You go bang and then it's off. So what can I do to that? Easy answer.
Crop.
Oh.
There you go. Look at that. Look at the difference.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Now this is a raw photo, and you can see all the little hairs and a whole lot of little spikes on the plant. You get a lot of detail with raw photos, but everyone can crop that photo.
Yeah.
So this is an end of year dancing class concert. I'm sure we've all been to concerts of some kind or another with little kids. What could we do to this photo?
Crop.
Yeah, where would we crop it?
The floor.
Yep, crop the floor out. That's wasted space. Anywhere else?
Crop the elbow on the right.
Oh, wow, perfect. Okay, so we crop it, and then we've got this little girl looking over here. So I think she's actually looking at the teacher.
Oh, teacher.
Yeah, and you've got all the little legs poking up and the little heads. And that's a nice photo for the dancing school. But this wasn't about the dancing school. This was about my granddaughter, of course. Now, she didn't know the photo was being taken. I wasn't using flash. She's just naturally cute, like all my grandchildren and all of yours.
Yes.
Can anyone see what else I've done in addition to cropping it?
You've lightened it.
Lightened it, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Brightened
Something-
it.
In the
Right.
background.
What have I done to the background?
You've softened the background.
Yeah, it's blurry.
Yeah, look, I think it was already blurry. Look, I won't keep you waiting.
Yeah.
If you have a look at the left top of her head, there's a foot. I've cloned the foot
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
out. And
Yes.
this head here next to her, I didn't think that added to her. And if you're ever brave enough to go into Photoshop, you just clone another area on the photo and then just paint it in. It's not that hard. I'm not an expert at it. Did it matter? Well, you know, I just think that looks better. She didn't need a foot kicking her in the head. Okay. There was a kangaroo at Paul's Gap. I saw a mob of them going past. We were up there on a family holiday and I clicked away. So let's presume we're going to crop this photo. What do you have to be careful about when you're cropping something in motion? Anyone know? Whether it's a person.
The motion.
Yeah, when you-
Focus.
Well, the answer
Depth
is
of field.
well, we've already stuck with that. What you don't
Yeah.
do is you don't crop it on his nose and then have a big gap behind, unless you've got an artistic reason. So you try and leave
Yeah.
a bit of room in front.
Yeah.
So I cropped this photo and I added some clarity because it is a raw file, and that's what we got.
Mm.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Now, I
the
think in black
rain.
and I think in black and white it looks really good.
Mm.
So
What
Barry,
do we
how
know-
do you add clarity?
Sorry.
How do you add clarity?
Well, there's a little slider called clarity and or sharpness, and you push it to the right.
Yeah. Okay. I've tried that. I've tried that before, but it can get quite harsh.
Yeah, look, you can overdo it. There's actually I'd forgotten about the sharpness. There's a sharpness tool in Lightroom. This is some years ago. I probably used the sharpness tool. You have to be careful doing all of this. You can overdo it. You can ruin a photo. What's surprising about the rain? I didn't actually realise the rain would look like that. It's nice to get a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you what's surprising. Normally you would take a photo like this at about 1,000th of a second, at least, to stop the photo. But if you do that, you don't get the rain like that. I took this at a 60th of a second.
Right.
Does anyone
yeah.
know how I got this effect?
No.
On a tripod. Oh.
No, I had my camera like this, and I moved it as it went past. It's called panning.
Yes.
And because you're moving with it, and I'm shooting on burst mode and servo focus. I've done a lot of this sort of photography. I do sports photography, all right, insects, flying photography. But it's not that hard on a big target. But because you're panning it, it allows you to take it at a slower speed. And this was a real surprise for me. I got these beautiful pieces of rain coming down. You can even see them bouncing off his head.
Yeah.
By the way, that's not easy. I think, doing panning, you've got to get it right. Now it's not all about me. This is Doug. Are you there, Doug Holloway? Is Doug here today?
Yeah, he's there.
Hello, Doug. This is one of Doug's photos.
He's just left the room, so his wife's raced out to get him.
Because we don't want to say nasty things about him in his absence, do we? Now, Doug didn't ask me to comment on this photo, but I will. I mean, he didn't ask
He's
me to make
reappeared. He's here again.
Okay, Doug. Doug, I think you took this photo in Bukhara, Uzbekistan. Is that right?
You'll just need to unmute yourself, Doug. Just hold the space bar down.
Hello, Doug. Anyway, I'm guessing you took it in Bukhara.
Sorry, yes, I did take it in Bukhara, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know this place. I even know this woman, actually. She's my great auntie, actually. No, there's a clue to where this was taken because I'd never heard of Bukhara, but there's a sign up the top that says Bukhara, and it's the Museum of the Water Supply or something. So this is a really great photo, Doug. What do I like about it? Well, it's all about the woman and the fact she's stepping. If she'd just been standing there, it wouldn't have been as
The same. Yeah.
the same. That's fantastic. I love this white box shape, and then you've got another one on the right. So we call that patterns. And I'm sure, Doug, when you looked at it, you didn't analyze all this and then say, okay, I'll take a photo of that woman. You grab the woman because that's what you do. But that's got a nice pattern. I really like this ledge poking out here on the right in front of her. It makes the photo three-dimensional, and the leading lines. And I love the door.
Yeah.
So this is a really, really good photo, Doug.
Yes.
Well done. And I'm sure you took a lot of photos. You know, there's a famous
Hundreds.
story about a famous a famous golfer who had to hit a shot around a tree to get on the green, and he did it. And someone said, well, that was lucky. And he said, yes, this is a well-known story. He said, yes, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And I can relate to that. I've done thousands of hours of photography, and I've got some really good ones like this. But there's a whole lot of times I didn't get any photos. Anyway, so what can we do to make this photo better? Do you want me to tell you, Doug?
Yes, I can already see, just having a look at it, how I could make it better.
Yeah, you tell us. Tell me what to do.
Well, I can see there's a guy in the doorway there that I actually think I could make that whole of that doorway black just by cloning the black around that guy, get rid of the guy altogether.
Excellent. You could definitely do that. And that wouldn't be a bad way to go. What else could you do, Doug? Let's get Doug to do this so no one else is picking on him. Well, anyone else got any ideas? Pardon?
Maybe include the bricks up the top. Maybe include that whole structure if he's got it, and the whole sign, or cut them out.
Let's just work on what he's got there. Let's presume that's all we've got, because otherwise, you know.
Lower the highlights.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you crop the top, bring the top down?
Yeah. So lower the highlights. Yes. Maybe crop. I actually don't think this adds to the photo.
No.
And sometimes when you have a sign in the pun.
Sorry,
and
I like
it. yeah, this is your photo, you see, Doug. So I'm just giving you some ideas because you can make a whole lot of.
Somebody else.
Pardon?
I didn't make a comment there.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. So sometimes signs are the least thing you need in a photo. You know.
Yeah, that's right.
I do corporate headshots for for a company, and what we don't need is a sign saying the name of their company, because if you're on their website, you don't need a distracting sign. Okay.
Right.
So I don't think these vents add to it. I don't think the sign adds to it. Who cares if it's in Bukhara or not? It's all about this woman. So that's the new photo. Now, I knew that making that guy dark, was an option, Doug. And I'm not showing that option, but it's definitely an option. I was going to say that is an option. But you can also show him up by bringing out the shadows. By cropping it, we get rid of the distractions, and it now makes the woman more significant in the photo. Instead of being just a small part, she's a big part.
Yeah.
And we've made, the other thing about this photo, Doug, is there's beautiful texture in it. It's a really, really nice photo. And we see the door more. Look at that.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful photo. I really like this photo. We don't have to see the guy, but it's interesting that his arm is at the same angle as the woman's. He's got, so there's like a bit of a pattern there. He's got modern clothes on, she hasn't. So we've got a little bit of a, a comparison. And at the last moment, Doug, I hope you don't mind this, but I just thought of something else and I did that. I shut the door. how did I do that? Well, look, I'm not an expert at this, but for those who want to know, I copied it into Photoshop, then I duplicated it. So I had 2 of that, and then I flipped the second image around so the door was facing the other way, and then I just cloned it into there.
Very
And
clever.
it only took me 5 minutes.
Very clever.
Very clever.
But you know what? Yeah, well, I think it's rather clever myself, actually.
And Barry, can I just add, it is very subjective, isn't it? Because there's something about the original black door that I like, because you're wondering where she's coming from and you're wondering what's in there, and it's like an adventure.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Like we could have kept that dark or made it completely black. We can do all these things, and that's the beauty of art and photography.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Now, you know what I did when I cloned it? Sometimes I clone shrubbery, right? But you don't want it to look exactly the same. So after I cloned it, I then cloned a bit of the clone onto the clone, so it doesn't look exactly the same. So there's a little trick.
Very good. Really clever.
I'll tell you a funny thing. I sometimes do that with eyes. I'll turn because if I've got a problem with someone's eye, there's hair over it or something, I'll make 2 copies. I'll flip one and then I'll copy the right eye onto the left, and maybe not completely, but don't tell anyone I do that.
No.
So, Henri Cartier-Bresson, he didn't coin the phrase, the decisive moment, but he applied it to photography. He is so famous, he's known as HCB. It's a bit like BK, that's me. If people talk about BK, you know they're talking about Barry Carney, or not.
Putting it out there.
This is one of the most famous photos ever taken in the world, and as you can see, it's all about the foot hitting the ground. What I find intriguing about this photo is, I mean, what a desolate area to be taking a photo. Who'd be standing there waiting to take a photo there? I mean, really, you've got all this rubbish in the water. It's dreary. Did he just go there and wait and just see this guy and take the photo? Possibly it was his best friend, who knows? I suspect it was a set-up shot. But he coined the phrase, the decisive moment, and it's not quite as dramatic, but that woman's little foot, I just see that as as an example of that. If we didn't have that foot going out there, it wouldn't have had quite the same impact. Well, that's just my view. Oh yeah, that was Doug's photo. Now, Doug, you asked me to try and improve this photo. The bad news, Doug, is that there's hardly anything you can do to this photo. I did improve the light on it a bit. You asked me to look at the light. This looks like an amazing piece of architecture, but we needed a wider angle on it and a focus on something. So we'll move along from there to something more cheerful, which is that. That is a beautiful photo, Doug. I really love that photo.
Mm.
What happens when you ask a little child to smile for a photo?
They give a really cheesy.
They overdo it, yeah.
Exactly. So that's the beauty of this photo. She might have been caught by surprise or not. That is a beautiful photo. It's lovely. So how can we improve it, Doug? We're not going to crop it. I actually wondered if it was cropped too much, but I actually don't mind the crop. What can we do to this photo just to improve it a little bit?
Maybe you could just sharpen it up a little bit.
Maybe. We could. But what could we do first?
Black and white?
It's a bit dark, isn't it?
Mm.
And you see this really bright area on the right, this white area? That's a distraction. Now, you can't always get rid of distractions with little kids, you know? You don't say, now go over there and look thoughtful over there. You take the photo, don't you? We can brighten it up. We can clone maybe some of this area into there. And because we're really, finicky, we could even get rid of the little hole in the chair on the right, but who cares? Oh, the other thing was, Doug, there's a bit of a discoloration on her face there. Now, I don't know if that's the photo or something. I mean, often kids have crumbs on their faces when you take snaps like this, and you can get rid of those. Anyway, there's the new photo. So we've brightened her up. We've cloned in a bit of green on the right. I got rid of the little hole in the chair, but who cares? And I've just used the clone tool at about 50% and painted a bit of her face onto her face. So that is a beautiful photo. That's even more beautiful. That's a really, really good photo. I love that photo. Whether you like what I did, that's completely subjective. And as Doug said, you can have it in black and white or not. I left the hole in there just to be a purist. Jenny Foley.
I must say, I like the black and white version.
Oh, that's great. There's something beautiful about black and white, isn't there? Something pure. But that's also really good in colour. Well done, Doug. Jenny Foley. Now, Jenny told me that she took this photo off her back porch. Well, actually, no, it wasn't. It was her front porch, was it, Jenny? I'm a bit confused. Where did you take this from, the front or the back porch? Jenny, are you there?
Are you having a joke with me?
Always, Jenny. Jenny was on a balloon. Jenny was on a balloon.
All right.
Now, Jenny was a member. Are you still a member of the photography club, Jenny?
A Year 3A creative class, yes.
Oh, okay. So Year 3A creative class. And was she lucky to get this photo? Well, she went to a lot of trouble to go up in the balloon, so that took out a bit of the element of luck. And Jenny, I suspect you took more than one photo during this session.
Oh, probably about 300.
But I'll tell you where you were lucky, Jenny. That was having the beautiful mist.
Yes.
Yes.
And the sunlight just percolating through in some areas. Like this is an absolutely fantastic photo, Jenny. Now, I don't want everyone else to be intimidated by some of these photos. I think the photos that were sent through, some of them are absolutely amazing. And what we're here to do today is to learn how to take better photos and how to maximize your own photos. So don't be intimidated by some of these photos, because this is pretty intimidating, this photo. What I love about it is that you've got the foreground, the midground with the mist and all the little ponds. You've got the sunlight and the shade. And then you've got all these hills, rolling hills. It's an absolutely fantastic photo. What I did do to this was just add a little bit of clarity. If you focus on the top of the photo at the sky and just see what happens when you add a little bit of, well, I think I used the dehaze button. Look at that, it just adds even more. And it just adds a little bit more texture to the mist. But, you know, you don't have to worry about that. This photo in itself is an amazing photo.
Thank you.
Now, Jenny did ask me what she could do about this photo. Would anyone like to say what the main problem? Now, this was a photo excursion, and I presume you had someone leading a workshop, a paid workshop, or not? And he was
No, we didn't actually, but it was these models were paid to.
No, he was okay. So all right, so he was a paid model. What is the main problem with this photo? Does anyone want to comment? And I'm not talking about technically. There's something else that's a problem.
No expression.
But let's forget about the model. There's another
He's
problem.
probably sick of doing it.
I think the background's dark and it blends into his hair a little bit.
Well, I'd say more than that. I'd say the background is terrible and it looks as though it's growing out of his head. Yeah. Now, Jenny, did he choose the background or did someone else?
Well, there were groups of us photographing it, you know, several people photographing him at once. So I'm not really sure now whether he chose it or some of the others did.
The thing is, this is a really good example of a background you don't take a photo against unless he's further away and you blur it. Because that could be a nice background if you blur it by using the right lens. That's a really bad background. And all you had to do was find another spot. I also don't like the pole coming out of his, well, that's part of the background, coming out of his elbow. And I actually don't like his groin area and his thumbs sticking out like that. Anything in front of the, closer to the camera looks big. That's a normal male pose. So I'll tell you what I did to this, Jenny. You asked me what could I do. I did that.
Mm.
And I just used the black slider at probably about 20 or 30% in Lightroom, and I made it less, used the clarity button in a negative way, and it wasn't that hard. If I tried to do that in, at 100, anyway, it wasn't that hard. I won't go any more into it, but this is a good example actually of what you don't have in the background.
Yeah.
Okay.
Harry, how did you turn the busy background into just a plain black one?
Well, look, I've got Lightroom and I've got a thing called the adjustment brush, and I put it on black. But if I just painted in pure black into that, what black does is it makes things darker. It would have been really hard to not make it obvious, I would have, because I'm not an expert at it, it would have bleached over onto his face. But by putting it on about 20 or 30%, it was all gradual. I just kept on painting with it. I actually found it quite easy, and I don't normally find this easy, but I just worked it out. Any other questions?
No,
someone commented on his serious face. Well, serious faces do have a point in photography, and I actually don't mind his face. Now that he's got a black background, I actually think he'd be quite happy with that photo. But his hands didn't add anything. Hands are really difficult in photos. Any more questions or comments?
I really want to know how much he got paid just for sitting there. I'm seeing a new job opportunity.
He had many chances.
Oh dear.
And do you have to be that buff to be a photography model? That's my other question.
No.
You should have said the girls.
All right, moving along. Okay. Now, any comments on this photo? This is Kay's son.
It looks very French 1950s. I love it.
Good point. I'm not asking actually for anything to improve it. What do you think about it as a photo?
I really like the contrast between, I like the contrast between modern technology and which, like the phone, which is quite a cold object, and then you've got the warmth of the cat behind it.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
And it really does tell a story.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
He's talking and texting, and the cat's looking at something else.
And I think Kay's just told him off as well, because it looks like he's having an argument with him.
Yeah.
All right.
The story of our relationship.
Maybe you could have the bottom cropped off a bit.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So we'll go on to how can we make. Let me say, I love this photo. To me, this is I just find this a really moving photo. Before we say how it can improve, we have a cat, and it never gets on me. And if it did, I would. Well, I think maybe once every 2 years I allow it to sit on me. But my wife Jenny can be sitting there with her iPad, and the cat is all over her arms, and it's much bigger than that. And this is what cats do. That's a beautiful pose for the cat. I would pay the cat a lot more than that guy in the previous photo for that pose. There's a really nice contrast between the cat and then, as you said, the phone. And that's just a natural pose. Even the watch balances the phone. And I just love his expression. I don't know what his story is, but this photo actually reminds me, in its tones, someone mentioned the tones, the 1950s style, it reminds me of that photo of that girl lying on the ground, just in the subtleness of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what can we do about it? Yes, I don't think we need his legs. And we crop that off. We make it a bit brighter. In the top right, there's a dark shadow. I would reduce that, and there's a bit of a mark on the wall there. And the other thing that stands out is this red object.
Red thing, yeah.
Now, you know, there is a sort of a theory that you should always take a red coat or umbrella with you when you're a photographer and give it to the model, because red is a fantastic colour, but it's also a distraction. So what did we do? We did that. We cloned out the red thing, But we didn't have to do that. Don't think you've got to do all this cloning. We just brightened him up a bit.
Much better.
I used the clone tool. And again, don't think you have to clone, but I just got rid of that, made that a bit less messy. But it's all about the crop and the brightness. That is a beautiful photo. I just love it.
Yeah.
It's a really moving photo. We don't know if he was just caught there thinking, if he was talking. We don't know. We can imagine it. But Kay did ask me to say, how could we make this photo better? Well, obviously we could crop it. The building is not that interesting. It's not about the building. My first thought was to do that. And the girls would probably like that. I don't like that blue plastic bag on the left. I hate that blue plastic bag. What you should have done, Kay, was ask that woman to put it down or to get out of the photo, especially if you spoke Japanese. I'm sure this is Japanese, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you should have asked her to move out of the photo or to put the plastic bag down.
Yeah, and she would have done that, I'm sure.
I like it. I think it's a good juxtaposition against, the modernity of the plastic bag and the traditional costumes with the selfies going on. I think it's great.
Well, Penny, all I can say is it's completely subjective and there's no accounting for taste. Yes, as I said, this is art, and if that's what Penny likes, then that's what Penny gets. In fact, what you could do is even have one of these girls holding a plastic bag, maybe hanging off her arm on the right there, and add one in if you really like plastic bags. But having looked at this photo, Kay, I thought, well, actually, that's all about the girls, but I think that's nicer. It's all about the dresses and the umbrella.
The umbrella is beautiful. Yeah.
That's much better. Much better.
And also, sorry, Penny, but I've actually taken the plastic bag out.
It's a bit
I'll
bright.
go with taking the plastic bag out.
I'm just loving watching, Barry, I'm just loving watching you smacking Pen back down to size. It's fantastic.
No, look, art is completely subjective, okay? And that's fine. There are no rules about photography. We'll talk about them in a moment. So that is a beautiful photo, and I think that's what you wanted. So what makes a great photo? It's got to grab your attention, entertain you, make you look again, make you wonder. Any one of those things. And if possible, it's got to be technically excellent, but not necessarily. And it's like any other piece of art. Now, this is one of my favourite photos.
Crikey.
Yeah, well, that's the raw file. It only took me, I was lucky to get this because it only took me 1,000 shots to get it. I was in my garage with 2 flashes, the camera on a tripod, a little hand shutter release, a cheap plastic bowl, that's the green, and a picture of a blue tongue lizard that I took in Tasmania, turned upside down. After 500 shots, I realised that the reflection was turning, had the blue tongue lizard's head the wrong way round, so I turned the photo upside down. It only took me 500 shots to work that out. And then, what could I do to make it better? This is just remember, this is a raw photo. What could I do to make it better? Any ideas?
Brighten the drop that's coming down a bit.
Perfect. And crop it. And that's what I got.
Oh, wow.
What I found amazing about this photo was that just by luck, and it was luck, the only thing in the drop is his head. I mean, I didn't know that was going to happen. Isn't that incredible? There's nothing photoshopped, nothing added to this photo, nothing artificial. This is just brightened up.
Oh, his head's in the, yes, I see what you mean. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's an amazing focus. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I'm the lucky person who bought that print, Barry.
Oh, are you? Well,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Very good taste.
Yes, it was a standout for me.
This photo, I entered into some I did quite well, let me say, in my own club competitions, and also in interclub competitions, and I had this in the Warrigal photographic competition. It did quite well, but they actually used it as the cover page of the book of, which showed all the good photos. One of the reasons was that there was room to put text in, of course, which wasn't my plan. Okay, I was down the coast, and it only took me about 3 hours of standing in the sun without a hat to get this photo. I was down down Portsea Way, and took this photo.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And what could I do to this photo? Well, I suppose it's pretty obvious. I can crop it.
Crop.
Add a bit of clarity, and in Lightroom you can push the black slider, and that's what I got.
Mm.
So that's just a nice photo. I just want you, don't think you have to go and do this, but just remember to crop photos, add a bit of clarity if you can in your software, and brighten photos up or darken them. That's the Balti Bridge. I did some night photography, and I was going home after an unsuccessful evening, and I just saw this little boat going up the Yarra. I've found in photography that I now see things I never saw, and those reflections are rather beautiful. You see them everywhere if you look for them, but the little boat just made a difference with all the ripples. So now we're getting serious. What are the rules?
Yes. Can I just ask about that last one? Because the boat's not visible. Obviously, it's a long exposure, isn't it?
No, it's not a long exposure at all. You see, if it was a long exposure, you wouldn't get these starbursts.
Where's the boat, Barry? I think, is it?
Well, you see this pole that comes down here? It's just to the right of there.
Oh, wow, it is tiny. Yep.
Yeah, but it's made all these beautiful ripples. No, this was probably taken at about a, I don't know, a 200th of a second or something. I would have used what's called ISO, high ISO, to get this photo. Now, this has, oh, sorry, you said a slow exposure, didn't you? Yeah, I was talking, yeah. Look, it wasn't taken at a slow exposure. Definitely wasn't. I don't think.
And F22 or something like that to get the stars?
Yeah, probably F16 to F22. That's, I didn't know I was going to get those stars, but it's nice when they happen. We'll move along. What are the rules of photography? The rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is you divide a photo into 3 sections, vertically and horizontally, and where you see the intersections, they're important points. I've just cropped this. You can actually put this grid on there in Lightroom or probably in other software too, and you can see there's actually 4 intersection points, and it's all about not always putting everything in the center. Then we've got the golden ratio. You might have heard of that, some of you. It's also to do with Fibonacci, famous mathematician. That just happens to be in the same spot, but that Fibonacci point can be in 8 different points around the photo. So it's about the main focal point and the curl of the grid. You can see that. It's supposed to exist in nature, in plants and animals, like some sort of, small insects, not insects, but anyway. And supposedly it's in some buildings and artwork that artists have used. As far as I'm concerned, it's really, it should be ignored. Forget about the rule of thirds, forget about the golden ratio. That's one of my favorite photos. That's completely central, nothing to do with either. What rule is that? Well, I've actually just centered it. I had to get down low to take this photo. As you get older, it's harder to get down low, and it's even harder to get up afterwards, let me tell you, especially with heavy camera gear. He appreciated it and he saluted me as I took the photo. That's at the National Gallery. There's no Fibonacci or rule of thirds there. I think he's in the perfect spot. We've got leading lines, very conveniently, and a little bit of clearance of his head above the railing. I was rather lucky. He was one of the security people. That's how it looked before. Oops. I think black and white is much better. So I've sharpened it up, and cropped it. Then there's the rule of odds, or is it the rule of threes? We had a judge who came along and started talking about the rule of threes. It's actually the rule of odds, and it's supposedly if you have 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever of an object, like in a, say, 3 apples or 3 trees, it looks better. Well, it may or may not, but it certainly doesn't mean you have 973. I don't think that would make any difference. That's a photo I took of 4 brothers before the wedding. I don't think having 3 of them would have been better. The little guy on the right makes the photo. So I want to say straight out, there are no design rules. Have a think about whether the photo you take, whether you want to crop it or not, and crop it to how it looks nice. And if it looks nice to you, that's the rule. There are no design rules. Leading lines can help a photo. Patterns, we looked at some patterns. Try and get the eyes in focus of animals and people. Leave space for motion or not, and avoid distractions. And crop unnecessary elements. There you go. I cropped it, made it brighter, put him in the bottom corner. There's no rules about that. In fact, that goes against the rule of having motion going into the corner. But you've got that lovely leading line, and I think he's perfect there. And guess where he was going? Look where he was going. Anyone recognise that guy?
No. Yep.
Hughesy?
It's David Hughes. Yeah, Dave Hughes. Now, he obviously had a surprise party, probably anniversary party for his wife. And he paid this guy who was waiting over there having a cigarette to start off with. I didn't realise what he was going to do. All of a sudden he started playing. When I walked around the museum, I saw him. I heard a noise. I thought, I was just about to hop in my car. I was on the other side of the road. And I saw him walking, started snapping, and he ended up over here. I sent this to Dave Hughes and he said, thank you. Oh, I've already shown you that one. Hamish Ewing. Hamish, you there? Yeah, I know you're there.
I'm there, yep.
What could we do to that one, Hamish? Or is it perfect?
It didn't, it's, the frustration I have is I see something and don't seem to quite capture what I'm seeing. This was the glorious early morning light, and I wanted, I think, to get a bit more depth into
is that what you saw, Hamish? Can you see the bottom of the photo?
I can see the bottom one.
Yeah, well, that's the same photo. And that's probably what you're talking about. There's the light on the right. It was just a matter of brightening it up.
Yeah.
You see, what a camera does is, if you put it on auto, or if you expose it perfectly, it thinks it's got to make it come out at an average sort of brightness. And that's what it does. It doesn't know how to necessarily get the best out. So that is a really beautiful photo, Hamish. This one here, Hamish, this one here, I actually love, you know, I've been talking about cropping photos. I love the crop on this photo, or the not crop. There's no people near the little boy. He's your grandson, I presume. And
granddaughter, actually.
Oh, granddaughter.
I had cropped that one to take stuff out, yeah.
Okay, so you've cropped it. So that's the perfect crop, okay? Even though there's all that extra room, it's fantastic. And all the people in the background just add to the photo. And I just brightened it up. It's a sunny day. That's how it should look. I just added brightness to it. That's all you had to do. And that makes a beautiful photo even more beautiful. That is a fantastic photo. I love it.
Thank you.
There's another one of yours. Just brightened it up.
Wow.
Oh, big deal, yeah.
Wow.
See, this is your photo. All I'm doing is brightening it up.
Lovely.
That's one of mine. I brightened it up and turned it around a bit. This is at the Werribee Sewage Farm. You pay about 30 or 40 bucks. You pay a bond, you get a key, and you can go in. And there's a wonderful, doesn't sound very attractive, but there's these huge ponds. It's a bird conservation area. And these little welcome swallows landed on there just for a second. I went bang, took the photo, brightened it up, and I call this one Twitter.
Wow, that's beautiful. That.
Now we're almost finished, but we'll finish on a high note. I didn't want to show this one at the beginning because it's too good. It might have made you think, you know, well, it's all going to, you know, that this is how all the photos are. This is an amazing photo. Well done, Julia. Actually, I thought you were Julia, but I wrote Julie. So I thought you were Julie, but you're Julia. Is that right?
I confuse people by using both names.
Okay, well, I'm not confused at the moment. This is an amazing photo. The first thing that stands out to me here is the quality of the colour, the tones. And then, of course, the bird is just perfect. You've got that lovely green, yellow colour there in contrast. The plant is fantastic. Lovely background blur. I don't think we need to say any more about this, Julie or Julia. That is absolutely amazing. Well done. This is completely different. He's not looking at the camera. He's not smiling. And that's actually what makes the photo. This is a fantastic portrait. Now, Julie is one of the Smile Makers photographers, and she's a member of the Knox Photographic Club or Society. And she's obviously a very serious photographer. And this is a really, really good portrait. I love it. I love the lighting on it. Did you use flash on this, Julie?
Studio lighting, that one.
Yeah. I couldn't see anything on your metadata that showed flash, but you can see the highlights in the eyes. That is a fantastic photo, but this was taken with studio lighting, and it's a beautiful photo. We'll move along. The first thing that hit me with this one again, before the cloud came and hit me, was again the beautiful colour. Just absolutely beautiful.
That's a midnight oil house in South Australia.
Really? Wow. The great thing about this, you've got all this empty space at the top cloud, but it's dark cloud, and that's really, really powerful. And then you've got the balance of the two houses down there. Now look, don't think you've got to go into South Australia and get this photo, but it's just an example of a beautiful photo, so let's celebrate it. You've got the balance of the two houses. You've got the sheep on the hill. This is a beautiful photo. I took the liberty of just cropping it. That's more about the house. Is that a better photo? No, it's not at all. I actually think that's the better photo because it's all about the cloud, but I just did that. Okay, I think that's enough. We're going to be talking about light and camera settings and all sorts of things later on. That's just an introduction to next week. Any questions or comments?
Barry, it's Chris here. I've just got one question. You know, you're going through the processing using Adobe Lightroom, or so up to now, I've just used whatever Apple's provided me on there.
Yeah.
What is the difference? I mean, it does all right, but obviously some of these pictures I've seen are just. So it's really worthwhile getting something to play with, and you'd have to learn yourself, I guess.
Yeah, but I hadn't even heard of Lightroom
right.
when I took up photography. I only took it up seriously in 2012, but I've done a lot of study. I've actually started studying it again. This whole thing's class has given me new enthusiasm. Because I've been doing a lot of photography, but I stopped studying. But look, getting back to the question, I'm going to talk about RAW and JPEG photos. If you take RAW photos, it's got thousands of times more information in the photos, so you can make a better photo. Now, you may not want to do that. So for those of you who are just happy to snap away with your digital camera or even your iPhone or tablet, what you can learn from this is about just cropping and maybe brightening photos. Think about the background. Just think about these things. If I take a photo with my iPhone, I think about these things. You can do that. And you can make a better photo. Don't think you've got to do what Julie did and what I do and some of the others. But just think, well, maybe if there's a special photo, I can make it better, especially a special one of I take a lot of grandchildren photos. They're not all great, but if there's a special one, well, actually I process all my photos, but that's just me. I love doing it. But just
Yeah, well, I do.
If you're serious, you can get Lightroom, and you might even be able to get it on trial.
Well,
And
there's
you may have to-
Luminar. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my sister-in-law has suddenly taken to photography, and she's using Luminar, and she thinks that's good. And I saw it recommended somewhere else. But you don't have to do that.
I use Lightroom, and the advantage is that it's a library as well as an image manipulation tool.
That's a really good
So
point.
Yeah.
You can get, I'll be telling you some resources at the end as to where you can get, you know, like you can get really good resources really cheaply online, and you can just look them up on YouTube. I look things up on YouTube all the time. There's all this information out there, but only if you want to. You don't have to do that. You can just crop and brighten, and your photos might be 50% or 100% better if you want them to be. You don't have to do this. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, sorry, Pam.
No, please go ahead.
Thank you. I've just invested in Lightroom, and I'm a bit overwhelmed. What would you suggest I do to start learning it? Where to go? Are you talking YouTube videos, or what's the best way to tackle it as a real beginner in terms of post-processing?
Okay, that's Lorraine, isn't it? Oh, but by the way, I haven't shown everybody's photos yet, so I'm going to show, just before I forget, because I do forget, next week I will show some more photos of other people, because I didn't want to show everyone's photos. And also, before I answer that question, which is a good question, if anyone else wants to send some more photos in, and maybe even new photos, new people who we maybe didn't see then, and do your own before and after and show us if you've been able to improve something just by using, you know, some free software or something, if you don't, and most of you wouldn't have the other software. If you'd like to do that and send them in and just show us what you've done, because that would be really interesting to show what you've learned. And I'd really like some of you to do that. Or if you don't want to do that, you've seen what I've been able to do with your photos. And by the way, I will, if you like, I will send you later on at the end the new versions I've done, if you like, so you have them.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
But maybe if anyone else has a photo they'd like me to do a before and after on myself, I will do that, you know, obviously. And just because if you've got a special photo you'd like better, I will do that for you. So that will be next week. Look, there's a really good photographer called Tony Northrup, Northrup. And he's got a book called Stunning Digital Photography. And he and his wife, Chelsea, are prolific on the internet. And his book, Stunning Digital Photography, he keeps getting it updated. It's got like 20 hours or something of short videos on how to take photos, and it goes through all the elements of digital photography. It's absolutely fantastic, and it only costs about $14, and you get all these videos, all little videos. So he makes a point, there's a video of him or his wife, and he's amazing. He's quite famous, and he also has a book on Lightroom, and that's something you might like to look at. And
okay, thank you.
If you're struggling with it, you can even ring me up and we can screen share, and we'll have a little look together. How's that?
Well, thanks, Barry. I may take you up on it, but I need to get started on it myself first, just to find my feet a little bit. But that's great. And could you just spell the surname of the Tony? Is it
North as in north and south? Rupp,
yes.
R-U-P. Tony Northrup. He's famous.
Thank you.
And it's a really good book. Any other questions or comments? We are over time. Doesn't worry me. I have a lot of time in COVID-19.
Barry, just painting here just quickly. I can't believe the difference in, you know, the picture of your birds on the wire at Werribee, the difference between the before and after. I mean, that's a stunning photo. I didn't realise how much you could change a photo by post-production, because the one that, I mean, that's amazing, the second one. But also, Julie, that landscape is absolutely stunning. I mean, I love landscapes, and I'm just wondering how much how much of it was put into the actual taking of the photo and how much was post work on that? Because that's, I mean, I'd want that on my wall. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
We got lucky with lighting, and as Barry said, it's really all about lighting. So it's pretty much as I took it, just brightened up a little bit, not much at all done to that one.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about this photo, and as you say, well, you were lucky, is the blue sky on the right. It's a beautiful contrast, Julie. It's a beautiful contrast.
Have to be in the right place at the right time, so that really was just luck. But
but you went out of your way to take this photo.
No, I could see it from the roadside. Actually, I fell in a big ditch just before I took this.
So you didn't go there to take it, you just saw it.
We, as a camera club, had gone to the Flinders Ranges on an excursion, and this was on our way to that, and it was amazing to find some wonderful shots for that.
I really love all your photos, Julie. You're obviously a really talented photographer.
Thanks for that. I had a wonderful time with photography, and I hope the other people joining in today will find the same joy as I find. One of the things I am doing at the moment is our camera club has a closed Facebook page. So I've taken on photographing within my house and my garden, something that makes me smile every day. And everybody's joining in with that. So not being able to get out to take landscapes, I haven't put my camera down. It's still working hard.
That's fantastic. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we might wrap it up there. We've gone over time. I thought we might, but thanks everyone. I've really enjoyed all the comments and the participation and the photos. And if anyone else wants to send some more in, please do, because I actually enjoy making beautiful photos more beautiful.
Thanks so much, Barry. That was fantastic. And we'll look forward to our next session next Friday. And everyone, remember to go put your hours in. Thanks, Barry.
I'm going to do mine at the end. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, Barry.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
See you